On many of my free evenings, I opt for DoorDash deliveries, a hustle that allows me to pocket some extra cash without the commitment of a conventional second job. This particular night, my journey began around 9 p.m., and I steadily accepted orders until around 11 p.m., when the pace began to slow down. During this lull, I found myself cruising around a bustling shopping center that boasted several fast food restaurants, the usual suspects for DoorDash orders. Suddenly, a new order pinged on my screen, a typical one, bound for a destination approximately 4 miles away. With the food secured, I initiated the GPS directions to the provided address. However, it didn't take long for me to realize that something was amiss. As I zoomed in on the map, revealing only roads and structures, the address I was aiming for appeared to be situated on a street devoid of any buildings. It resembled an empty plot of land, but the DoorDash map wasn't renowned for its precision. With curiosity getting the better of me, I decided to venture forth, resolving to investigate further and contact the customer if necessary. I embarked on the drive, a journey that consumed nearly 20 minutes before I arrived at the obscure street in question. It was a desolate place, bereft of homes, intersections, or any passing vehicles. At the road's terminus, it transitioned into a gravel path, and on one side stood a time-worn wooden sign, its weathered surface rendering its text illegible. I veered onto the gravel and engaged my vehicle's high beams, revealing an object in the distance. As I approached, my phone chimed, signaling my arrival. Within the radiance of my headlights, I encountered a diminutive mobile home or RV, adorned with crudely painted numbers upon its door. I glanced at my phone. The numbers read 2760, the correct address. Stepping out of my car, I held the food in my hand as I approached the peculiar RV. Upon closer inspection, it emitted an eerie aura, neglected and aged. It seemed odd for a mobile home designed for mobility. I mustered the courage to knock and waited. This was a rare cash order, which now made more sense given the surroundings, though it did little to ease my apprehension. As I surveyed my surroundings, an unsettling sensation enveloped me. The RV was enveloped by dense woods, shrouded in complete darkness beyond it. A sound emerged from within, and I braced myself for the door to open. However, my gaze was suddenly drawn to my right, where a smiling man stood at the RV's corner. He inquired about his order, and I nodded, apologizing as I handed it over. After quoting the total, he retrieved a $5 bill from his pocket, flashed another grin, and mentioned that he needed to retrieve the rest. He then turned and walked back around the RV, while I remained rooted in place. Though this exchange may not seem as eerie in writing, I assure you there was something deeply unsettling about this individual. It was his demeanor and choice of words that sent shivers down my spine. I waited for a minute or so, growing increasingly uneasy, before peering around the corner to ascertain his whereabouts. In the distance, I discerned a figure standing near what appeared to be the shadowy outline of a shed. They weren't moving. They simply stood there. As fear coursed through me, my head snapped back to the sound of the RV door creaking open. This time, a different man peered out at me before swiftly slamming the door shut. My heart raced as I glanced back at the man near the shed. He was now approaching the RV again, holding something in his hands. In that frantic moment, I couldn't discern the object's exact nature, but it resembled either a lengthy bat or a rifle. Panic surged within me as I sprinted back to my car, trembling hands fumbling with the keys as I started the engine and shifted into reverse. The man leisurely walked around the side of the mobile home, standing placidly in the obscurity as I sped away. I couldn't fathom what had occurred that night, but I was not inclined to unearth the truth. Following the encounter, I drove straight home, grappling with the choice of whether or not to dial 911. Ultimately, I opted not to, plagued by uncertainty and the enigmatic nature of the events that had transpired. Thus, that night's bizarre encounter remains a perplexing enigma, shrouded in unanswered questions. I work the late shift at a 24-hour drive-through restaurant, and this unsettling incident occurred not too long ago. My role is that of a crew manager, but in reality, I find myself performing the same duties as everyone else, taking orders and cooking. During the overnight hours, we always ensure there are at least 2 staff members on hand, one being a manager and the other typically a cook. However, on this particular night, our cook had called in sick, and my attempts to find a replacement yielded no results. Thus, by midnight, I found myself the sole worker on duty. Ordinarily, the restaurant experiences a lull in activity during the overnight shift, with additional employees scheduled to arrive around 4 a.m. Still, for those 4 hours, I had to manage everything by myself. Leaving my headset active in case a customer approached the drive-thru, I embarked on the night's tasks. My initial focus was on scraping and cleaning the stovetops. However, just a few minutes into this routine, I was startled by a loud banging emanating from the front of the restaurant. I navigated down the aisle and peered over the counter, spotting a man standing outside the front door, vigorously pounding on it. Then he pressed his face against the glass, surveying the entire interior before locking his gaze on me. I approached the door, and his eyes remained fixed on me. As I drew nearer, he retreated slightly, as if anticipating that I would grant him access. I shouted through the glass, informing him that our dining area was closed and insisting that he utilize the drive-thru for his order. His expression seemed one of confusion, prompting me to reiterate forcefully that the doors were locked and he needed to employ the drive-thru. Strangely, he offered no response, leaving me uncertain whether my message had registered. Frustrated and bewildered, I turned and headed back to the kitchen, assuming that he would eventually comprehend that the doors were not opening. I resumed my duties, diligently cleaning the stove tops for a period spanning 15 to 20 minutes. During this time, I ventured to the front to check if the man had departed, and from my vantage point, he appeared to have vanished. The entire parking lot lay empty, and there was no sign of the man at the door. However, just moments after I completed my stove cleaning task, an alert chimed in through my headset, signaling a customer's presence in the drive-thru. I activated my microphone and asked for their order as I approached the window, but I was met with silence. Upon reaching the window, I instantly observed on the camera feed that no car was present. I surveyed the screen for any signs of movement, but found none. Dismissing it as a peculiar glitch, I turned to walk away. Yet, as I reached the rear of the restaurant, I halted abruptly, my ears attuned to a faint sound. I remained motionless, listening intently as footsteps gradually traversed the roof directly above me. These were cautious steps, producing minimal noise, apart from the occasional creaking of the roof structure. Yet there was no doubt in my mind. Someone was up there. My gaze followed the sound, tracing it down the ceiling until I spotted the ladder leading to the maintenance hatch. It was at that moment I comprehended their intentions. I sprinted toward the ladder, frantically searching for a way to secure the hatch, but my limited familiarity with it left me uncertain about its locking mechanism. Suddenly, a loud creak emanated from the ceiling directly above me, accompanied by a series of thuds from the exterior of the hatch. A moment passed, and then the hatch creaked open slightly, revealing only a pair of eyes peering back at me through the slender gap. My heart raced as I dashed toward the front of the building, the hatch above me emitting loud thuds as I hastened to unlock the door and flee to my car. Panic-stricken, I dialed the police, all the while anxiously scrutinizing the restaurant's windows. While speaking with the emergency operator, I spotted a shadow traversing the front counter. Subsequently, a man materialized at the far rear of the restaurant, fixing his gaze in my direction. After a moment, he pivoted and vanished behind the kitchen, leaving me gripped by fear until the arrival of the police. Law enforcement conducted a thorough search inside and outside the premises, even ascending to the roof. Yet the intruder had already made a hasty escape. Remarkably, nothing within the restaurant was missing. No equipment, no money. It was as though the intruder had simply broken in and then departed. I endeavored not to dwell on the incident excessively, but it remains challenging to avoid the conclusion that his intent was directed at me. As I mentioned, This transpired relatively recently, and there has been no substantial update regarding the incident. Even with his face captured on camera, no confirmed identity has been established. The building owner subsequently installed a padlock on the interior of the maintenance hatch, a measure that, in hindsight, should have been implemented earlier, but I suppose convenience had taken precedence. I continue to harbor concerns about the man's intentions and whether he might be surveilling, awaiting an opportunity for me to be alone once more, ready to enact whatever sinister plan he had in mind. Over the past 5 years, my nomadic lifestyle has led me to various odd jobs all across the country. Living out of a van, I'm constantly on the move, with occasional prolonged stays in specific areas to replenish my funds before hitting the road again. During the particular period in question, I found myself stationed in the mid-eastern region of Utah, where I had taken up employment at a rather desolate gas station. This establishment was nestled along a road primarily frequented by locals, serving as a convenient bypass for travelers keen on avoiding the hustle and bustle of the highway. In essence, it was an isolated oasis, a solitary gas station designed to cater to the infrequent passers-by. For me, it was a perfect fit. The remote location held no sway over me, since my home on wheels granted me the flexibility to linger and work for extended durations. On this occasion, I had been at the gas station for slightly over a month, and my work schedule remained as erratic as ever. The particular shift that night stretched from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was, by all accounts, an unremarkable evening. Aside from the sporadic customers pulling up to the pumps, the station lay quiet, with minimal stocking or tasks demanding attention. I found myself mostly standing around, idly passing the time on my phone or pacing the store, ensuring the shelves maintained their neat appearance. Then, at precisely 1 a.m., a customer arrived, parking their vehicle in one of the scarce spaces right in front of the shop's entrance. Instinctively aware that they were heading inside, I returned to the counter, awaiting their arrival. As the man stepped out of his vehicle and entered the shop, he cast a brief smile in my direction and nodded before venturing down one of the aisles. His demeanor seemed congenial enough initially, yet it soon became apparent that his actions defied the typical behavior of a customer. He commenced a peculiar ritual of sorts, whistling as he meandered through the store. At each aisle, he would pick up an item, peruse it briefly, and then return it to the shelf before proceeding down the aisle to repeat the process. Perplexed by his actions, I couldn't discern whether he was merely taking a break from driving or if he genuinely required something. The objects he examined ranged widely, and he exhibited no genuine interest in purchasing them. Then, without warning, he ceased whistling, walked towards the exit, and exited the store. Although I had no reason to suspect theft, his behavior was undeniably strange. Subsequently, he returned to his car, fumbled around inside, then exited his vehicle once more and re-entered the shop. And with growing unease, I couldn't help but feel that this was unfolding akin to a potential armed robbery scenario, the tension mounting as he approached the counter. However, contrary to my expectations, his demeanor upon re-entering remained non-threatening. He approached the counter and initiated small talk, inquiring about the course of my night. I played it cool, maintaining a facade of normalcy, mindful that I might be overthinking the situation. However, my anxiety surged when he requested assistance with his car. He claimed that his tires needed air, and he had not spotted any external pumps on the premises. Our station did not feature self-service air pumps, but we did possess a handheld air compressor for emergency purposes. I retrieved it and followed him to his vehicle. He gestured to the specific tire in need of attention, and I knelt to attach the compressor line. Within a mere 10 seconds, the device indicated that the tire had reached the requisite pressure level. Glancing up at the man, I observed that he was peering down at me, his expression inscrutable. I promptly removed the equipment and stood up, preparing to return to the store. However, he abruptly blocked my path, positioning himself in front of the door. His right hand delved deep into his jacket pocket, and his gaze remained unwavering, revealing a chilling intent. I implored him to step aside, but he remained rooted in place, and his eyes suggested that he was primed for action. Sensing imminent danger, I retreated a step, striving to maintain a calm demeanor and diffuse the escalating tension. Just as I braced for the worst, he abruptly dashed around me, leapt into his vehicle, and sped away with remarkable haste. Seizing this opportunity, I hastened back into the store and immediately dialed 911. To my astonishment, the authorities arrived within a matter of minutes. The officers were already pursuing the same vehicle, one that was connected to a recent crime near the border. They provided no further details, but their tone conveyed that it was not a minor offense. After providing my statement, they resumed their pursuit, and I never received any subsequent updates. Despite my efforts to uncover more information about the incident, I remained largely in the dark. I couldn't fathom the man's true intentions or why he had visited the station. Speculatively, he might have aimed to steal my van in an attempt to evade capture or, at the very least, delay his pursuers. Yet, considering the gravity of the recent crime with which he was associated, it's plausible that my life was in grave danger, and the enigma of why he opted not to harm me continues to confound me to this day.